You don't need an army to destroy you. You don't even need enemies plotting in secret. Most of the time, the deadliest weapon against you is already with you, your own mouth. Right now, somewhere in your life, someone is holding on to words you once spoke, words you thought were harmless, words you thought had vanished, but they didn't vanish. They were stored, remembered, twisted into tools that may one day be used against you. That joke you told in anger, it can be turned into evidence. That confession whispered over drinks, it can become leverage. That careless promise, it can become a chain around your neck. History proves it. Empires didn't always collapse because of swords and fire. They often crumbled because of loose tongues. Leaders who could conquer nations lost everything because they couldn't conquer their own speech. A single outburst, a single boast, a single drunken revelation enough to bring down dynasties. Niccolo Machiavelli, the ruthless observer of power, understood this better than anyone. He saw that men were rarely defeated by their enemies alone. More often, they were undone by their inability to master silence. He taught that those who control their words control their destiny, and those who don't, those who talk too much, too carelessly, become victims of their own voice. In this video, we'll uncover 9 dangerous situations where your own mouth becomes your betrayer. 9 traps that ordinary people walk into every single day. These traps have destroyed rulers, ruined careers, broken families, and toppled friendships. And yet, once you learn to spot them, you will see the truth. Your tongue doesn't have to be your executioner. It can become your most powerful weapon if you learn when to speak and when to stay silent. So let me ask you, how many doors have you closed with a careless word? How many relationships have cracked because of something you couldn't take back? And more importantly, how many victories are you handing away right now just because you haven't mastered the art of holding your tongue? Stay with me until the end of this video, because once you see these 9 traps through Machiavelli's eyes, you will never speak the same way again. You'll notice when your enemies are baiting you, when your pride is betraying you, and when silence is the only move that protects you. And if you want more lessons like this, insights into psychology, power, and the hidden games of human nature, make sure you subscribe to Stoic Focus. Your future self will thank you for the wisdom you gained today. 1. The rage trap, when anger becomes a confession. Few things strip away discipline faster than rage. And Machiavelli, who spent his life watching rulers rise and fall, understood that anger was never a display of power, it was a moment of surrender. This is what I call the rage trap. Because fury doesn't just make you loud, it makes you weak. It turns your own mouth into a confession booth. Think about the last time you were truly furious. Did you shout something you later regretted? Did you reveal feelings you had hidden for years? That's what rage does. It burns through your mask and forces truths out into the open. Every grudge, every insecurity, every resentment spills out, and once spoken, those words can never be taken back. Machiavelli warned that he who wishes to command must first command himself. Yet, in moments of rage, that command is lost. Your enemies don't need to interrogate you. You interrogate yourself. They don't need to trap you. You trap yourself. All they have to do is push the right buttons, and you'll explode, handing them the very information they were looking for. Consider politics. A leader, provoked by criticism, lashes out in public. That clip goes viral, and suddenly the world sees not a strong commander, but an unstable hothead. His rivals don't even need to attack him. He has destroyed himself with his own outburst. Or think of business. A CEO, frustrated in a board meeting, screams at his team. The staff walks out not in fear, but in contempt. A recording leaks. Investors lose faith, and the company's reputation suffers. He thought he was asserting dominance. Instead, he revealed insecurity. Even in personal life, the rage trap destroys more than we realize. A father yells in anger, and his children never forget the words. A friend shouts in frustration, and the bond is broken forever. One fiery sentence can outweigh years of loyalty. In the modern world, rage is even more dangerous because it is always remembered. Phones are everywhere. Every word can be recorded, shared, and replayed endlessly. What once was a private outburst now becomes permanent evidence. Rage used to destroy reputations slowly. Today, it can do so overnight. But here's the deeper truth. Anger doesn't just hurt you in the moment, it makes you predictable. Once someone learns what provokes you, they own you. They can pull your strings whenever they want. Rage gives them the remote control to your emotions, your actions, even your future. So how do the powerful avoid this trap? They still feel anger, they're human, but they never let it master them. They walk away, they cool down, they respond later, strategically, when their words can't be used as ammunition. The powerful understand that silence in the heat of fury is not weakness, it is survival. History confirms it. Alexander the Great conquered half the known world, but in one drunken rage, he killed his closest friend. That act haunted him for the rest of his life. The empire was vast, yet he could not conquer his own temper. His rage revealed the man behind the mask. This is the lesson: your enemies are not always the ones across from you. Sometimes the true enemy is your own unguarded mouth. The rage trap proves that fury is not righteous fire. It is weakness disguised as strength. Here is the affirmation for this lesson. My anger serves me, not the other way around. The next time the fire rises in your chest, remember Machiavelli's warning. Ask yourself, if I speak now, who benefits? If the answer isn't you, then silence is the most powerful move you can make. 2. The victory illusion: pride that hands over your strategy. If anger makes us betray ourselves in heat, then success tempts us to betray ourselves in celebration. Machiavelli would have called this the victory illusion, the dangerous moment when pride and triumph blinds us to the enemies, quietly taking notes. Success intoxicates more than wine. When you win, when your plans succeed, your ego doesn't just whisper, it shouts. You want recognition, you want applause, you want people to see how clever you've been, how brilliantly you outmaneuvered others. And so, you talk, you explain, you reveal. Without realizing it, you turn your hard-earned victories into a lecture manual for your competitors. Think of the entrepreneur who finally cracks a market. Excited by their achievement, they go on podcasts, interviews, and social media, proudly describing every step of their strategy. They believe they are inspiring others, but to rivals, those explanations are instructions. Within months, imitators appear, copying every move. The original innovator loses their edge, not because they were defeated, but because they revealed the blueprint themselves. This is the victory illusion. It's the trap of believing that your audience is celebrating with you, when in truth, many are studying you. Some applaud, but others are reverse engineering. Some nod with admiration, but inside they are calculating how to steal your advantage. Machiavelli himself wrote, "A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests." In other words, loyalty to curiosity, loyalty to applause, loyalty to the need for validation, it's often disloyalty to your own future. Every detail you reveal to satisfy admiration is a detail you hand over to those preparing your downfall. History gives us stark examples. Julius Caesar's victories in Gaul made him a legend, but his parades and writings stoked envy in Rome. Senators, threatened by his growing fame, plotted his assassination. What seemed like celebration was really a beacon that drew daggers. His victory illusion blinded him to the dangers of revealing too much. In modern times, the illusion is amplified by technology. Social media tempts us to broadcast every success: promotions, business wins, personal milestones. We think we're sharing joy, but in truth, we're broadcasting strategy. Employers, competitors, even enemies watch closely. What you thought was harmless pride becomes ammunition in someone else's hands. Consider a young executive. She earns recognition for landing a major client. Proud. She explains to colleagues exactly how she did it: the pitch, the tactics, the timing. They applaud. Weeks later, one of those same colleagues uses her method to secure an even bigger client, edging her out of the spotlight. She thought she was building status. In reality, she gave away her playbook. The powerful know better. They celebrate results but conceal methods. They let mystery build their aura. They understand that silence about strategy is not stinginess, it's survival. Their victories speak for themselves. Their mouths stay disciplined. So how do you escape the victory illusion? By shifting your loyalty, not to applause, not to admiration, but to your future. Celebrate in private. Share selectively. Let people see the outcome, not the recipe. Keep your audience wondering how you did it, because mystery inspires far more respect than over-explanation. Here is the affirmation for this lesson. Victory speaks silently. The next time success tempts you to boast, pause and remember Machiavelli's warning. Ask yourself, am I sharing this for applause, or am I protecting my next victory? Because in the game of power, applause fades quickly, but exposure lasts forever. 3. The drunken truth when wine turns into weakness. Wine has been praised for centuries as a drink of celebration, of connection, of courage. But Machiavelli would have warned that it also carries hidden danger. Alcohol does not create new truths. It simply lowers the walls that keep dangerous truths inside. This is what I call the drunken truth, the trap where clarity fades, and your own mouth becomes a source of intelligence for anyone clever enough to listen. Think of your self-control as a fortress. When sober, the gates are locked, the guards are alert, and secrets stay safely inside. But with each drink, those guards grow tired. The gates loosen, the walls crack. By the time intoxication sets in, your defenses are gone, and the most valuable treasures, your thoughts, your fears, your private confessions, spill out into the open. Machiavelli studied rulers who were undone not by armies, but by their own lack of discipline. He knew that secrets were often extracted in moments of weakness. And what weaker moment exists than drunken honesty when the mind is clouded? Words flow without calculation. Your enemies don't need to torture you, they only need to pour another glass. History offers countless warnings. Roman generals lost credibility after drunken banquets where their loose talk exposed strategies. Statesmen have destroyed careers with careless remarks over dinner and wine. Even in recent times, how many scandals began at parties? With a recorded drunken rant, alcohol transforms the private into the public, and the temporary into the permanent. And it's not only politics or business. Personal lives crumble under the drunken truth as well. A spouse reveals hidden resentments after too many drinks, words that can't be unheard. A friend discloses secrets that shatter trust. In the haze of alcohol, people feel closer, safer, more connected. But that false intimacy often plants the seeds of betrayal. Consider a simple example. A professional attends a networking event, drinks flow, and conversations loosen. Feeling comfortable, he mentions struggles in his company, frustrations with leadership, even hints of confidential projects. The next day, he remembers little, but the others at the table do. What he thought was harmless chatter becomes leverage against him in the weeks that follow. This is the danger Machiavelli would have seen clearly. The enemy doesn't need to ask hard questions. They just need to listen while you reveal everything yourself. So how do the wise avoid this trap? They understand that drinking is never neutral. Each glass is a choice between clarity and vulnerability. Some abstain entirely, valuing their discipline above all. Others drink sparingly, never to the point of weakness. But none allow themselves to become careless, because they know every intoxicated word can be remembered, recorded, and used. Machiavelli once wrote, "Therefore, a prince, so long as he keeps his subjects united and loyal, ought not to mind the reproach of cruelty." Applied here, the cruelty is toward yourself. Be cruel enough to deny your impulses when alcohol tempts you. Protect your clarity, because without clarity, your words will betray you. Here is the affirmation for this lesson. Clarity is my power. The next time you're offered one more drink, ask yourself, am I buying a moment of connection, or am I selling a lifetime of control? Because in the end, the drunken truth teaches us that wine may taste sweet in the moment, but the bitterness of regret lasts far longer. 4. The breaking point stress that exposes you. Not every confession slips out in anger or wine. Sometimes it escapes under pressure. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the breaking point, the moment when stress weighs so heavily that a person cracks. and their own words betray them. We all imagine ourselves stronger than we are. We believe we can carry endless responsibility, endure deadlines, withstand expectations. But pressure has a way of stripping away illusions. It shows us who we are beneath a polished mask, and all too often, what it reveals is weakness. Think of an employee facing impossible demands at work. At first, they remain calm, but as the stress builds, their voice shakes, and eventually they blurt out, "I can't do this, I'm not good enough." In that instant, they believe they're seeking sympathy or relief, but to those listening, the confession is a verdict. Colleagues see incompetence. Superiors see unreliability. The pressure may pass, but the words remain. This is the cruelty of the breaking point. What feels like release to you is often ammunition for others. Competitors take note of your exhaustion. Supervisors quietly adjust their expectations downward. Even family and friends, though compassionate, may begin to see you differently. Your private venting becomes public evidence. History offers many warnings. Leaders who appeared unshakable in calm times revealed their fragility under stress. Once the mask slipped, subjects lost respect, allies withdrew, and enemies advanced. Machiavelli observed that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But when a ruler crumbles under pressure, he inspires neither fear nor love, only contempt. Consider a simple family example. A father, buried in financial worries, sighs at the dinner table, "I can't handle this anymore." To him, it is a moment of vulnerability. To his spouse and children, it is a wound. They begin to doubt his strength, his ability to provide. His single sentence plants seeds of insecurity that may take years to uproot. Or imagine a student under the weight of exams. One night, they confess to classmates, "I'm failing. I'll never make it." The others may offer comfort, but later they remember, when opportunities arise, they hesitate to rely on the one who once admitted defeat. That passing confession becomes part of their reputation. The wise understand that pressure is not the enemy. It is a test. It reveals character. And those who master their response under stress separate themselves from the crowd. While others confess weakness, the disciplined remain composed. They may feel the same fear inside, but they do not broadcast it. They let their actions, not their outbursts, speak. Machiavelli would have said composure under fire is the true measure of strength, because anyone can appear confident in comfort. It is in discomfort, in strain, in chaos, that the difference between the strong and the weak is made clear. So how do you avoid the breaking point? You prepare before pressure arrives. You train your mind to pause before speaking. You remind yourself that words spoken in exhaustion often outlive the exhaustion itself. And if you must release stress, choose carefully whom you trust. Not every ear deserves your vulnerability. Here is the affirmation for this lesson: pressure builds diamonds. The next time deadlines tighten, responsibilities pile up, or expectations crush you, remember, stress doesn't have to expose you. It can refine you, but only if you guard your tongue. Keep your composure, and let your resilience, not your confession, speak for you. 5. The sympathy snare. How manipulators use your kindness. Not every betrayal of the mouth comes from anger, pride, or stress. Sometimes it comes from something far more subtle, your compassion. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the sympathy snare, a trap where the very instinct to help and protect becomes the weapon others use against you. Humans are wired to respond to suffering. When someone shares a story of pain, when they show tears, when they reveal wounds, our defenses lower. We want to comfort. We want to prove that we are trustworthy, caring, even heroic. But here lies the danger: not all displays of vulnerability are real. Some are carefully staged, polished, and performed to disarm you. Picture this: a co-worker comes to you with a tale of being overworked, underappreciated, and ignored by management. They sound defeated. Your sympathy grows, and in trying to console them, you admit your own frustrations with the company. What feels like bonding is actually confession. Later, that same coworker repeats your words to others, perhaps even to your boss. What began as kindness turns into ammunition against you. This is the essence of the sympathy snare. Manipulators reverse the power dynamic. Instead of appearing threatening, they appear weak. Instead of raising your guard, they lower it. And while you're leaning closer, trying to help, you're actually stepping into their trap. History has countless examples of this tactic. Con artists thrive on it. The classic sob story has been used for centuries to steal money, favors, and secrets. From fake beggars in ancient marketplaces to modern email scams about sick relatives. The formula is the same: perform vulnerability, win sympathy, and extract resources. But it's not only strangers who use this technique. Friends, family, and colleagues can weaponize sympathy too. A relative may exaggerate their struggles to gain financial support. A friend may dramatize heartbreak to pull you into their drama. A partner may use selective vulnerability to maintain control in a relationship. The trap works because we want to believe vulnerability equals honesty. But performed vulnerability is not honesty, it's strategy. Machiavelli understood human weakness. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find someone ready to be deceived." Your need to feel compassionate, to be the rescuer, is exactly what makes you vulnerable. And those who understand this need can manipulate it endlessly. So how do you defend yourself without becoming cold or heartless? The answer is balance. Show kindness, but protect your boundaries. Help when you can, but don't reveal your own weaknesses in the process. Listen with empathy, but resist the urge to confess in return. Your compassion should never come at the cost of your discretion. Imagine this scenario: a new acquaintance shares a tragic story that tugs at your heart. Instead of immediately offering personal confessions or financial support, you respond with care, but stay reserved. Later, you discover they've told the same story to others, each time trying to extract something different. By holding your boundaries, you avoided being used as just another pawn in their performance. Here is the affirmation for this lesson I help without revealing. The sympathy snare teaches us that kindness is not weakness, but kindness without caution is. True strength is the ability to care while still protecting your own power. Machiavelli would remind us compassion is admirable, but only if it does not hand your enemies the very secrets they need to defeat you. 6. The gossip economy: secrets as social currency. We often think of gossip as harmless chatter, a way to pass time or feel closer to others. But Machiavelli would have seen it differently. He would have called it a marketplace, what I call the gossip economy, where secrets are currency, and every careless word you trade makes someone else richer while leaving you poor. When people gossip, they believe they're simply sharing opinions or harmless stories, but in reality, they're revealing something far more dangerous: their own reliability. Every secret you tell about others says just as much about you. It tells listeners that you are willing to betray confidence, that your tongue cannot be trusted, and once your reputation as a gossip is fixed, you are marked not as powerful, but as careless. In this hidden economy, there are two types of players: the collectors, who gather information but reveal little, and the spenders, who give away secrets freely. Collectors rise in influence. People instinctively sense that they know things, yet never expose themselves. Spenders, on the other hand, lose everything. They talk too much, reveal too much, and soon no one respects their words. Machiavelli warned, "The way men live is so far removed from the way they ought to live that anyone who abandons what is for what should be pursues his downfall." We like to imagine gossip as harmless bonding, as it ought to be, but in reality, it is warfare disguised as conversation. Information flows upward to those with power, and betrayal flows downward onto those who cannot protect themselves. Consider a workplace. An employee vents to a coworker, complaining about leadership. It feels private, even therapeutic, but that complaint passes to someone else and eventually reaches management. The employee now carries the mark of disloyalty. They didn't just share frustration, they traded away credibility for nothing. Or take a group of friends. One person reveals intimate details of another's life in casual conversation. It may seem like gossip about someone else, but to those listening, it's proof of betrayal. They may laugh in the moment, but later they'll think if she gossiped about them, she'll gossip about me too. And just like that, her own trustworthiness collapses. The gossip economy thrives because most people are terrible negotiators. They give away valuable intelligence for the shallow reward of attention. They want to feel included, connected, admired, but in their eagerness, they spend all their currency. Meanwhile, the silent ones, the careful listeners who contribute little, walk away, wealthier with every exchange. Machiavelli would tell you this: if you cannot master your tongue, others will master you through it. Gossip doesn't just destroy those being spoken about, it destroys the speaker's reputation, piece by piece, until no one sees them as reliable. So how do you escape the gossip economy? You flip the game. Become the collector, not the spender. Listen more. Speak less. Let others reveal themselves while you remain guarded. Ask questions that cost you nothing but yield valuable insights. And when tempted to trade secrets for approval, remember that approval fades, but betrayal lasts forever. Imagine two people at a party. One talks loudly, sharing every piece of gossip they know. The other nods, smiles, listens carefully, but says little. When conflict arises weeks later, the listener has gained influence armed with knowledge, untouched by suspicion. The talker, meanwhile, has nothing left but a reputation for betrayal. Here is the affirmation for this lesson: secrets flow to me. The gossip economy teaches us that in the world of power, words are currency. The more you spend carelessly, the more you bankrupt yourself. The more you save, the wealthier you become. Silence, in the end, is the safest and most profitable investment you will ever make. 7. The authority trap: why arguing with power destroys you. Few things sting more than being treated unfairly by someone above you. A boss criticizes you unjustly. A teacher singles you out. A superior questions your competence when you know you're capable. Your instinct is to defend yourself, to argue, to prove them wrong. But Machiavelli would have warned that this instinct leads straight into the authority trap, the moment when your mouth turns fairness into failure. Here's the truth: authority does not always care about justice. In fact, many times authority tests you precisely by being unfair. A ruler, a manager, or a commander may provoke, not to hear your explanation, but to see your reaction. Do you keep your composure under pressure, or do you reveal immaturity by protesting too loudly? Think of an employee accused of missing a deadline. Panicked, they reply, "It wasn't my fault, I didn't have the resources." To them, it feels like self-defense. But to the manager, those words confirm weakness, blame shifting, lack of accountability, inability to handle stress. The defense becomes the prosecution. History provides many examples. Kings often tested nobles with unfair criticism. Those who argued, even truthfully, looked disloyal. Those who accepted the rebuke calmly, then later proved themselves through action, gained trust. Machiavelli wrote, "Politics have no relation to morals." He knew that demanding fairness from authority is a losing game. What matters is performance, not moral satisfaction. In everyday life, the authority trap shows up everywhere. A coach yells at a player unfairly during practice. The player snaps back, insisting they did nothing wrong. The argument may win them relief in the moment, but it brands them as uncoachable. Or picture a student in class who challenges a teacher's judgment publicly. Even if their point is correct, their reputation suffers not because of the truth, but because of the power dynamic. Why does this happen? Because power thrives on perception. The person in authority doesn't need you to be right or wrong. They need to know if you can stay composed when criticized. If you explode or argue, you prove them right in the only way that matters. You lack control. So how do the wise escape this trap? They choose strategic silence. They accept the criticism outwardly, even if unjust, and later prove their worth through undeniable results. They understand that resisting the urge to argue in the moment isn't weakness, it's tactical restraint. By swallowing pride today, they create opportunity tomorrow. Consider a young lawyer criticized harshly by a senior judge. Instead of defending herself angrily, she listens calmly, makes a note, and continues her case with focus. Days later, the same judge acknowledges her composure. By avoiding the authority trap, she gained respect rather than losing it. Here is the affirmation for this lesson. Results prove everything. The authority trap reminds us that power rarely rewards protests, but it always respects performance. Arguing with authority may feel righteous, but it drains your credibility. Meeting authority with calm discipline, then proving yourself with results, transforms unfairness into opportunity. That is how you survive power and one day rise above it. 8. The revenge revelation, how exposing others destroys you. Few temptations are as powerful as the desire for revenge. When someone betrays you, humiliates you, or breaks your trust, every part of you wants to strike back. And often, the easiest weapon to reach for is their own secret. The private information you collected when trust still existed. But Machiavelli would have called this the revenge revelation, the fatal mistake of believing that exposing someone else's weakness will make you strong. At first, it feels satisfying. They wounded you, so why not wound them back? But here's the danger: the moment you reveal another person's secrets, you reveal something far more damaging, your own lack of discretion. You show the world that you cannot be trusted. And in the long game of power, that is a death sentence. Imagine a relationship ending badly. One partner, consumed by anger, rushes to tell mutual friends every embarrassing detail they know. For a moment, it feels like justice. But the audience isn't thinking about the betrayal, they're thinking about the betrayer. They ask themselves if she would expose him. Would she expose me too? Trust evaporates. The revenge has backfired. History is full of examples. Courtiers in royal courts who spread their former master's secrets rarely found new positions of influence. Their knowledge may have been accurate, but their willingness to reveal it marked them as dangerous. No future ruler wanted an ally who might one day turn into an informant. As Machiavelli observed, reputations outlive victories. Once branded as untrustworthy, no amount of explanation can repair the damage. Consider a modern workplace. An employee feels betrayed by a colleague and, in retaliation, reveals private struggles that colleague once shared. At first, co-workers sympathize, but soon, the tide turns. The office begins to wonder if he shared that so easily. What might he share about me? The betrayer doesn't just damage their enemy, they poison themselves. The deeper truth of the revenge revelation is this: secrets are leverage. Once spoken, they are gone. A clever strategist never spends all their currency at once. They hold information in reserve, keeping opponents uneasy, uncertain, and cautious. Silence preserves power. Revelation spends it recklessly, leaving you with nothing but a reputation for betrayal. Machiavelli taught that severities should be dealt all at once, while favors should be given slowly. Applied here, the lesson is clear: if you must respond to betrayal, do it through actions that build your position, not through words that weaken it. End alliances quietly. Remove access strategically. Protect your dignity by refusing to lower yourself into public exposure. So how do you resist this trap when the urge for revenge feels overwhelming? You remind yourself that revenge through revelation feels powerful in the moment, but it is ruinous in the long run. The stronger move is silence. Silence unsettles your enemies. Silence preserves your reputation. Silence ensures that while others look reckless, you remain untouchable. Here is the affirmation for this lesson: silence is my revenge. The revenge revelation teaches us that true power is not in exposing others, it is in proving that even betrayal cannot make you lose control. To speak too much is to give away power. To remain silent is to hold it. And in the eyes of Machiavelli, silence has always been the sharpest form of revenge. 9. The promised prison words that become chains. Some traps are born from anger, others from pride, drink, or stress. But one of the most subtle traps comes not from fury or carelessness, but from good intentions. Machiavelli would have called it the promised prison, the cage we build for ourselves when our mouths commit to more than reality can deliver. Promises are seductive. They solve problems instantly, at least on the surface. When pressured, cornered, or asked for reassurance, Saying "I promise" feels like relief. The other person relaxes, the tension dissolves, and the moment feels under control. But every promise is a debt, and like all debts, it comes due. Consider the manager under pressure from the team. To inspire confidence, he promises, "We'll finish this project in a week." The words buy immediate loyalty, but the deadline is impossible. And when it is missed, the credibility that seems so strong crumbles overnight. One broken promise outweighs 10 fulfilled ones. Or think of personal life. A parent, eager to comfort, promises to attend every event, every game, every recital, but life intervenes. Work, illness, or exhaustion get in the way. The missed promises leave scars that apologies cannot heal. The child doesn't remember the promises kept, only the ones broken. Machiavelli understood the danger. He warned that he who builds on the people builds on the mud. And what are promises? If not castles built on mud, they are fragile structures built on hope, shifting, unstable, ready to collapse with the first storm. A leader, a friend, or a parent who builds reputation on promises alone creates foundations destined to sink. In the world of power, the promise prison is even more dangerous because it often combines with another trap, the need to prove competence. When people feel insecure, they compensate with words boasting about skills, exaggerating achievements, or vowing to deliver the impossible. But boasting is just another kind of promise, and like all promises, it binds the speaker. The more you talk, the more chains you wrap around yourself. Think of a new employee eager to impress. They promise to handle every task, accept every deadline, assure everyone they are more capable than they feel. At first, colleagues admire the enthusiasm, but soon, the cracks show: missed deadlines, sloppy work, overextended commitments. The employee doesn't just look unreliable, they look dishonest. Their own promises have become their prison. The wise know better. They promise little, but deliver more. They resist the temptation to soothe with words and instead build trust through consistent action. They understand that every commitment is a link in a chain, and once spoken, it binds them whether they like it or not. The fewer the links, the freer they remain. Imagine two leaders. One constantly makes bold declarations, promising reforms, victories, and miracles. The other speaks sparingly, offering only modest assurances. Years later, who is trusted more? Always the one who underpromised and overdelivered. For trust is not built on grand words, it is built on quiet reliability. So how do you free yourself from the promise prison? By practicing restraint, speak carefully, commit cautiously, replace "I promise" with action. Let people learn to trust you not because of what you say, but because of what you consistently do. Here is the affirmation for this lesson: I promise less, I deliver more. The promise prison teaches us that words can become chains, binding us to expectations we cannot meet. But silence, restraint, and discipline break those chains. In Machiavelli's world and in ours, the person who masters promises does not make many. They make few, and they fulfill them all. That is how reputations are built. That is how power endures. Conclusion: mastering the mouth, mastering destiny. We began this journey with a simple warning. You don't always need enemies when your own mouth can destroy you. Machiavelli, the ruthless observer of human nature, understood that words are never harmless. They are weapons, tools, and traps capable of building empires or tearing them down in an instant. Through 9 lessons, we've seen how speech, if uncontrolled, becomes betrayal. In the rage trap, anger transformed into confession. Words spoken in fury became permanent records of weakness. In the victory illusion, pride in success turned into a manual for competitors, handing them the strategy meant to remain secret. With the drunken truth, we saw how alcohol strips away restraint, letting secrets flow freely into the hands of anyone sober enough to remember. In the breaking point, stress and pressure exposed vulnerability, creating opportunities for others to exploit. The subtler dangers came next. The sympathy snare showed how manipulators fake weakness to disarm us, tricking us into revealing ourselves. The gossip economy revealed that gossip is not bonding, but an exchange of currency, where silence makes you rich and careless, talk makes you poor. Then came the dangers of power. The authority trap taught us that arguing with power rarely wins, it only confirms their judgment of us. The revenge revelation reminded us that exposing others does not strengthen us, but brands us as untrustworthy. And finally, the promised prison revealed how careless commitments and overcompensation create chains that choke our credibility. 9 traps, 9 ways that your mouth can betray you, not because of enemies outside, but because of impulses inside. So what do we do with this knowledge? The answer lies in discipline. Machiavelli believed that those who mastered their tongues mastered their destinies. And the principle has not changed in 500 years. In a world where every word can be recorded, shared, and weaponized, silence is no longer just golden, it is survival. But silence alone is not enough. Silence must be strategic. It must be paired with precision. You don't win by never speaking. You win by speaking at the right time, with the right words in the right measure. Just as a skilled swordsman doesn't swing wildly, but waits for the perfect strike. The master of speech knows when to stay quiet and when to cut with words that cannot be forgotten. Think of those who have endured in history, not the loudest, not the boastful, but the careful. Their power came not from endless talking, but from measured speech. They created mystery, and mystery creates authority. They left others guessing, and that uncertainty preserved their influence. Imagine if you applied these lessons today. How many arguments would you avoid by mastering your rage? How many competitors would remain confused if you celebrated silently? How many relationships would remain intact if you resisted drunken confessions or manipulative sob stories? How much trust could you preserve by avoiding gossip, swallowing pride with authority, refusing revenge, and promising less but delivering more? The answer is simple. Your life would become stronger, steadier, harder to penetrate. You would stop handing others weapons to use against you. You would stop undermining yourself, and in doing so, you would gain the rarest of all powers, control over your own destiny. This is the hidden wisdom of Machiavelli. Words are not free. They always come with a cost. Sometimes they cost you respect, sometimes opportunity, sometimes reputation. But silence, when used wisely, costs nothing and protects everything. So let me leave you with this final thought. Every conversation is a battlefield. Every word you speak is either a shield that protects you or a sword that cuts you. Most people lose because they treat words carelessly. The few who win are those who discipline their mouths before their mouths can discipline them. The choice is yours. Will you remain a victim of these traps, forever sabotaged by your own voice, or will you rise above them, mastering the art of speech as Machiavelli himself advised? Remember, this power does not shout. Power whispers. Power waits. Power chooses words with the precision of a blade. And if you found these lessons valuable, if they opened your eyes to the silent war happening in every conversation, then I invite you to join us here on Stoic Focus. Subscribe now for more insights into power, psychology, and the timeless strategies of survival. Because in a world where so many speak without thinking, the few who master their mouths will master everything.